How are you? Good.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. Everyone take their seats and we'll get ready to begin. All right, I'd like to call this meeting of Saanich Council to order on Monday, April the 18th. We have a slightly revised agenda tonight. We've got some items for final reading and an item for a bylaw for 3 readings. We'll take public input tonight on agenda items under D and E and F, and there is also going to be a committee of the whole afterwards. So if you're here to speak on the consideration of allowing energy goats on urban residential lots or consideration of zoning amendment to permit pocket farm markets, please hold your comments to that part of the meeting. If you'd like to speak on any of the other items, when it comes to public input, I will call for speakers. So with that, we'll start the meeting off with the adoption of minutes. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for the adoption of the council meeting minutes of April 11th and the special committee of the whole of April 12th.
Your adoption. Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Let's call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item number B.
This next item is bylaw for final reading. It pertains to 593 Agnes Street. It's a rezoning of the property to the RD1 or single-family duplex. And we are looking for final reading of bylaw 9359 and also approval of the development permit.
Move final reading. Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed? That's carried unanimously. Another motion for the development permit, please.
Move approval of the development permit. Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk, let's move to item B2.
This item is also final reading. It is zoning bylaw 9370 to rezone the property at 4655 Cordova Bay Road to the RS12 zone for proposed creation of 8 bare land strata lots. Council's also asked to give the development variance permit approval as well.
Move final.
Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Dermott is opposed, and that motion carries. And second motion, please, for the development variance permit.
Move approval of the development variance permit.
Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Dermott is opposed. That motion carries. All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item C, which is public input on items D, E, and F on the menu. Sorry, on the agenda. You can tell I just had dinner. All right, so we've got an order over there, and an order of fries over there. If you'd like to speak to item D1, which is 4655 Cordova Bay Road Sewer Service Inclusion, E1, University of Victoria Confined Space Rescue Service Agreement, E2, Regional Tower Crane Rescue Services Agreement, E3, Victoria Regional Transit Commission request for fuel tax increase, or F1, Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee, Saanich Arts, Culture and Heritage Awards. I'd like to invite you to come up to the microphone. And please give your name and your address and limit your comments to 5 minutes. That would be most appreciated. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to those items? Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Calling for a second time. Any members of the public that wish to speak? Calling for a third and final time. All right, no speakers on that item. So we'll now move on to item D1, bylaw for 3 readings. Madam Clerk, could you introduce that for us,
Yes,
please?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. This first item for 3 readings is for 4655 Cordova Bay Road is the sewer service area inclusion. This is bylaw number 9371, and it is pertains to that subdivision that we just gave final reading to for the 8 bare land strata lots at 4655 Cordova Bay Road.
Do the first reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. That carries unanimously.
Do the second reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. That carries unanimously. Thank you.
Third reading.
Second.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to item B1. Madam Clerk, could you please introduce that item for us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is the University of Victoria Confined Space Rescue Service Agreement. The report of the fire chief is recommending that council authorize the renewal of the Confined Space Rescue Service Agreement between the District of Saanich and Oak Bay with the University of Victoria for the joint provision of the Confined Space Rescue Services to UVic for the period to August 31st, 2021. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Move that the renewal be authorized.
Second?
Move a second. Thank you. Just for some sake of discussion, can I call upon the fire chief to just give us a slight introduction to this? We most appreciate it. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, this is an agreement for confined space rescue services to provide the University of Victoria. The university has a requirement under Part 9 of the Occupational Health and Safety Regulations to have a rescue service in place for all confined space entities that we may have on site. Presently, we provide the services to UVic and the contract in Hardy with the Oak Bay Fire Department as well, because we share the university campus. At present, we will provide standby service for all high-risk entities, and we will respond as required for the low and moderate risk classifications that are identified in the work-safe regulations. The agreement's been in place now for some 5 years. We've had no responses whatsoever to the university for any rescue in confined spaces. However, we do take advantage and utilize these spaces for training services as well.
Any questions for our chief? Councillor Haynes?
Now, Chief, as you know, my expertise in confined space rescue was greatly enhanced by going with the Mayor and some others for the training program over in Vancouver. I appreciated those times and I was not scared, honestly. I was. Separately, Chief, this is a 5-year agreement, but there's no rider in there on your cost increases with negotiated contracts. Can you just talk us through that and why you feel that's not needed?
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Haynes for through the mayor. The agreement in itself, we have a $5,000 administrative fee that is surety fee between the Oak Bay Fire Department and Saanich Fire Department. The administration of this contract in itself is limited to one before you did that is the extent of it in terms of writing the agreement, preparing it for signatures between parties, and ensuring that all parties to the agreement are adhering to it. Aside from that, there really is very minimal work that is done around this agreement, so it really is to cover the time and materials of both fire departments to participate in administering the contract.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions for our chief? So then we've got a motion on the table. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. That carries unanimously. All right, we'll move on to item B2. Madam Clerk, could you introduce that for us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this next item is the Regional Tower Crane Rescue Services Agreement. The report of the fire chief is recommending the council authorize the renewal of the Tower Crane Rescue Services Agreement between the District of Saanich and the City of Victoria with the municipalities of Colwyn, Esquimalt, Oak Bay, Sydney, and View Royal for the period 2016 through April 2021.
Second?
Do you have an introduction, Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Tower Crane Rescue Services Agreement is an agreement to provide service between the City of Victoria Fire Department and Saanich Fire Department, servicing the municipalities of Colwood, Esquimalt, Oak Bay, Sydney, and View Royal. It is for the provision of tower crane rescue services. Tower cranes are often erected on many large construction sites for multi-story buildings. As a result of those cranes being in sight, industry is required to have a rescue service in place. As such, through the Construction Safety Alliance of BC in partnership with WorkSafe BC, they have an agreement with fire services to provide rescue services throughout the province to municipalities that so require it. Both Saanich and Victoria Fire Departments have numerous numbers of staff. Certainly in Saanich Fire we have 80 of 100 suppression rescue members trained in technical high-angle rope rescue, and we are able to provide those services at the ready, or at the call of should there be a rescue in place or required. We do that at a regular basis in terms of providing ongoing training with the City of Victoria Fire Department And throughout the term of the last agreement, we had one situation in the city of Victoria where we assisted with the rescue. Our staff do train on a regular basis with the city of Victoria as well, and this agreement is to continue to provide those services to the municipalities mentioned.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Brown, if you have a question.
I just want to say that these type of agreements that the fire department does with other jurisdictions is part of our integration of services. It would be very hard for smaller municipalities to have that sort of training with volunteer fire, so I think we should recognize that Victoria and Saanich are seen as integrating with other jurisdictions. Thank you.
Councilor Haynes?
I'd just like to mention the support of that we can show by leadership on the value of integrated services, and I'd like to thank our chief for being part of that and initiating it. Thank you.
I'm going to call a question then. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, let's move on to item E3. Madam Clerk, could you introduce that for us?
This next item is the Victoria Regional Transit Commission request for fuel tax increase. The correspondence from the Victoria Regional Transit Commission is requesting the council endorse the Transit Commission's request to increase the dedicated fuel tax applied in the region under the BC Transit Act by 2 cents per litre to support transit system development in the capital region. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Bryce?
I'll move the recommendation.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Councilor Bryce?
I see there are some hands. Perhaps
Mr. Mayor, I'll wait to provide any information as councillors need it.
All right, thank you. Councilor German?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'm going to support this request. Nobody likes to see additions to taxation, but this is one of our, it has been for over a decade, one of our priority modes of transportation for people in the region. And we have had at least a decade-long commitment, both in the municipality and regionally, to try to shift people from single occupancy auto use to transit, cycling, and walking. We can't do that unless we provide the best possible service that will attract people to transit rather than using their cars. It would be nice if we had other levels of government, particularly the provincial government, providing for a greater amount of support than they have in recent times. We've gone, in many cases, quite some period when provincial funding has not increased, and that is in fact a decrease with inflationary. So we are left with a situation where if we're going to provide the level of service we need, we're going to need to finance that substantially locally, and I think this is probably the best way to do it. So I will support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Brown, and then Councilor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think for this region, it's always been very difficult to fund transit locally because there are only 3 levers: property taxes, advertising, ridership, and gas tax. And when they've done surveys over the years, gas tax was the one that people supported because they felt that it reflected transportation. Some people think, well, when the province funds capital, they should be able to move along. But capital is great, but you still have to have operators to operate. So I think this gas tax is long overdue to help improve transit in the region. And if we ever want to get to rapid transit out to the West Shore, we need to look at other levers. I think when TransLink was formed, there were a number of other funding levers that were brought forward by the provincial government that never reflected to this region. And so I think as a local entity, gas tax is the best thing we can do at the present time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am supportive of the request that's before us. I think it does make a lot of sense to seek funding through an increase in the fuel tax. I thought that the point in the letter where, by contrast, the transit levy increase to offset this equivalent amount would be a 22% increase. That is a reflection of how challenging it is to raise revenue in order to fund the transit service. It also demonstrates, I think, the contribution at pennies a liter that can be made towards the transit service. Even though obviously there's a considerable benefit for transit riders in improvement in transit service and transit infrastructure, there's an improvement can be seen across the board, because obviously the more riders we have on the bus, the fewer drivers on the road, and the more we're going to alleviate traffic congestion in the future. So it really is a benefit beyond just those who choose to get on the bus. But I think most importantly, an increase in service level and the infrastructure to serve it is incentive to folks who have not yet made the choice to get on the bus, if they have that option available. I think it does make it a more desirable service, and I would be quite pleased to see this go forward, and I'm hopeful that the Minister, and in this case the Minister of Finance, is responsive to the request.
Thank you. Councillor Haynes?
I will speak in support of this as well. For the reasons that have already been said, certainly it's an appropriate task of ours to help shift ridership into public transit from cars. And that will be driven by many elements in the market, but also be driven by the quality of the service. And this is one of the tools we can use to improve the quality of the service. That said, for my own education, perhaps Councillor Bryce will explain, this tax increase would be across the province, across the region, so just for gas that's sold in the region, and then goes directly to transit in the region. Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Plant, and then Berglund, and then Councillor Bryce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for you to Councillor Bryce in your role as Transit Commission Chair. I just would like, in my homework, I'd like someone to correct it. My understanding is that Vancouver's fuel tax is 17 cents. Is that accurate?
Vancouver has an entirely different formula, and in some parts of the province, hospital costs are included locally, and in other parts they aren't. So there's no way of comparing the two. I would just, when I see the comparison between those two numbers, I say you have to have the whole picture, and none of us were there when this formula was put into place, but at some point in history, I guess it all made sense.
Okay. I'm going to answer my own homework then, and I was trying to kind of serve you a bit of a softball out of the park.
I'd love to take it.
My understanding is that it is 17 cents, and in my reading of looking at the rates around the province, and here in the capital district, we're only at 3.5 cents. So I certainly can support 2 cents going towards to make the increase, to make it a total of 5.5 cents per liter. And if people don't want this, don't buy gas. I mean that quite sincerely. Please ride your bicycle like yesterday's great event. So I am in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Berglund.
Thank you very much, Chair. I guess if we're serious about an improved and efficient transit system, we really don't have too many options. We've got the gas tax, we've got user pay, and we've got property tax. So it does make it fairly simple for us once we make the first decision. And like the rest of us here, none of us like an increase in cost, but it does come with improved service. But I do support what we have here.
Thank you. Councillor Bryce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps I can just close off the discussion by indicating my appreciation, and on your behalf as well, Mr. Mayor, as a member of the Commission, for what looks like it's going to be a well-supported motion. And members of council may be aware that we had done this about 3 years ago, getting the support of the CRD and so on, and the Minister wanted even a greater indication of support from our community. So the CRD has unanimously supported this motion. An entity which doesn't have a lot of things in the unanimous column, so I think that that's a pretty sound show of support. I know the City of Victoria has, Esquimalt has, we are looking like we're going to be supporting it tonight. Just to, as pointed out, there are only a certain number of levers you've got to deal with, and if we are going to improve our transit, we're going to be looking at it on the property tax or at the fare box. And we've just been through a fare increase, and it's been a very big challenge. It's never easy, and you always have to find that sweet spot between you want to raise enough money at the fare box to help the system be run, but not make the numbers so punitive that people decide not to take the bus. So that's something we have struggled with. I would like to point out the provincial government here locally does provide about 35%, which is actually on a per capita basis the highest in Canada of any provincial government. There have been years, not in recent past years, but there were years where in some cases actually there was some provincial money left on the table because the formula is such that for the money that the province puts up, we have to put up this, close to 70% local funding. And you can only get it from these three sources. So there have been times when commissioners have sat around that table and have thought to themselves, we'd like to take advantage of more provincial money, but in order to do that, we've got to come up with more local money, and that means more property taxes. This year, when you look at all the numbers, when we put them together for our final budget, you will notice that the Transit Commission, because we at the Commission were not able to do any improved service this year, we felt it would be inappropriate to increase the taxation. So you will see there's a 0% increase coming from transit this year. So I think that I feel really on this issue we are one as a community, and I think the one voice that we speak to the province with, they're obviously not interested in getting involved in raising taxes like none of us. But I think that this will be a strong voice, and I'm delighted that around the region, councils one by one are all coming to the same conclusion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dermott for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just thought when this goes to the minister, it might be nice to point out that at the council meeting, we had no members of the public come forward to oppose this. And that's significant. Thank you.
Thank you. Our clerks are taking minutes, of course. Can we make sure that's in the record? Perfect. All right. Any more questions? Any more discussion? All right, seeing none, I think there's a motion on the table. Call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. Last item for the council portion of the agenda.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, could you please introduce that one for us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this item is the Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee. The report of the Senior Manager of Recreation on behalf of the Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee is recommending that Council approve the proposed Arts, Culture and Heritage Awards program. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sanders.
I'd like to move the recommendation, and I have a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded.
As I'm very pleased that we are able to bring this forward at this time for the Arts, Cultural and Heritage Committee. The concept of an award for in the cultural area was brought forward by Councillor Dillon. He chaired the committee in 2012, and it was supported by the council at that time. That was in 2013-2017 strategic plan. Most everything is in the report, but I just like to say that we have a model with 15 years of successful environmental awards that recognize those that have been good stewards and contribute to the natural environment. And now I think it's a wonderful time for have an Arts, Cultural and Heritage Award that recognizes those that have contributed to our cultural environment. So we're looking towards this year, 2016, to have the first opportunity to present the awards, and we thought it was appropriate with the Municipal Hall having its 50th anniversary as well. And we'll celebrate these contributors. We took some of our lead also from the Environment Awards. You know that they have 7 categories they give out, and it becomes more and more difficult over the years, but certainly we're starting the fledgling, so we have 5 awards, and the principle behind the awards is not to recognize the best ballerina or the best the best artist, painter or such, but to have awards that recognize people that actually have contributed and have built and made us being well recognized in the region for what we contributed to culture. I look at one of the, as I was looking at this today and thinking, 2 weeks ago I went and saw the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, and there was a reception afterwards, and I saw a young man there who was a school representative on the Arts Committee when I was a citizen. And it was nice to see that he had absolutely no training in ballet, but he ended up going to work for Ballet Victoria, washing their floors and cleaning and such to pay for his ballet lessons. And he became quite a performer, and in the last 2 years he's moved on, and now he's actually marketing and bringing out the performers to the city and that. And you know, there's a young man who also in high school was the great Stracchini, and went to magic shows for the community association picnics and such. So there's an example of a youth and how they one individual that's grown through what we've offered in Saanich. So I hope that you will also support this award and give us the opportunity to recognize people that have contributed well culturally to this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanders. Councillor Haynes.
First of all, I'd like to compliment Councillor Sanders and the committee for bringing this forward. And I do understand it's been in the works since 2012, so well done for persevering. I think the end results show the level of work, and I'm quite impressed by the 5 categories in your titles: Unsung Hero, Cultural Steward, The Art of Business, Next Generation Youth Award, and Individual Lifetime Achievement Award. Well done. I think you've really covered some great areas there. I just have a couple of questions that you'd help me understand how the awards are structured. With the awards in place, we're talking about the awards will be granted at least once per 4-year council term. So I imagine that gives you time to get the awards up and running. But then when you have them running, you're going to award them once every year.
Through the mayor, we'll actually award them at least once per term, not necessarily every year. And certainly Councillor Murdoch can attest to the fact that how it gets more and more difficult as the years go by. So perhaps we will do it twice during this term, but we certainly are going to start this year with your support.
That's right. And then the budget for the annual environmental award ranges between $1,500 to $2,000 each year. And it is anticipated that the Arts and Culture Heritage Awards will not be more than that. So if it's in a one term, that would be the cost per term if there's one set of awards. But if there was 4 awards, it would run to $6,000 to $8,000 like the environmental awards. That's the kind of range of budget.
That would be correct. So that would be up to $2,000 per budget.
Per budget.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Any more questions? Councillor Dermott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will certainly support this initiative. As Councillor Sanders mentioned, I was able to bring this forward when I had the pleasure of chairing the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee in 2012 and immediately before. The arts, there are a lot of people who work very, very hard in the arts. Artists get recognition, but a lot of the people who provide the support and work at it, as Councillor Sanders has said, through their lifetime, often don't get the recognition. That's different from sports, for example, where sports tend to be organized into teams and so forth, and there are a lot of very formal recognition ceremonies and a lot of awards that are provided. The arts is, my background is sports, but I regard the arts as just as legitimate as sports, as a recreation and avocation. But there isn't that organized structure as much that provides recognition for people who really contribute to their community. So I'm very pleased, and I congratulate Councillor Sanders and the committee on bringing this to culmination, and look forward to it being put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any more? Oh, Councillor Plant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Sanders, and to your members of the committee for doing this. This is really exciting, and I'm very happy to lend my support to it. I just have a couple of questions and comments that I'd like to just offer in the spirit of my 2 bits, even though I believe we didn't ask for this initial report. It was in the prior council's incarnation. I really like the width of the different types of awards that are suggested. The breadth, perhaps, is a better choice. I do wonder if Unsung Hero is potentially suggesting that it's only going to be those volunteers, as opposed to sometimes people who do lead from the front. I think in our community we have several great artists and several people who lead organizations, and they're not unsung. They're well known. So I just can't help but thinking, calling it the Unsung Hero. I appreciate the intent to recognize those who often are unacknowledged, but I would have a tough time suggesting, for example, if we were to select the head of the symphony as the person we wanted to recognize as an individual, calling them unsung, I think would be perhaps inaccurate. The other piece I would just offer back in, and Councillor Haynes asked about how often it would be done, and I would love to see it happen annually if there are enough applicants. To that end, I'm curious to see why we would choose to, and this is a question, why we would choose to award several in a category rather than have one in a year and perhaps have them in the subsequent year and the subsequent year more candidates. I'm just curious what the committee's thinking was.
Well, first I'll mention about the unsung heroes, and you're quite right about people that lead in that, but these are the invisible people. You know, these are the people that well, all I can say is they're invisible. They're the ones that are behind the scenes. They're always supporting, and they would never be acknowledged because they're not at the forefront. So that was the name that we chose for that. And your next question was that...
It says you could do several
Yes.
awards in a category in 1 year, and I'm wondering why not spread them out over several years.
Well, I think when you look at a category, there could be a group of people. You know, there could have been something that involved more than one person that stood out. You know, something in a specific year.
I'm sorry, I got the sense from the report that you could offer several awards in one category.
That's correct.